Today is a big day in the GOP primary, which technically doesn't exist, shouldn't exist because Donald Trump is going to win and we're all just wasting our time. Nikki Haley is siphoning off money from moderate Democrat types to try and challenge Donald Trump. Whatever. I suppose it is, in the end, a good thing because with as many Democrats vowing to support Nikki Haley as there are, that money will go from Democrats to Republicans, and then maybe it'll be used somehow for a GOP candidacy or something. What a silly, silly time to be alive. But the big news, of course, Ron DeSantis has canceled his campaign as of yesterday. And exemplifying just how apocalyptically bad Ron DeSantis' campaign was, he quoted Budweiser, closing out his speech, thinking that he was quoting Winston Churchill. Let me repeat that for you, my friends. As Ron DeSantis was giving his speech announcing the suspension of his campaign, he says Winston Churchill once said, quote, but as it turns out, he was in fact quoting Budweiser beer. I kid you not. Now look, just because you're a beer company doesn't mean you can't come up with good quotes. But I find it absolutely hilarious that the team running the DeSantis campaign were so abysmal, apocalyptically bad. Wow. This is going to be historically one of the worst campaigns we have ever seen for the presidency. And now, of course, tomorrow is the New Hampshire primary, which I have to imagine Nikki Haley is going to drop out. If Nikki Haley continues, I can only assume it's for one of two reasons. She is milking money off of Democrats, as I mentioned, or they fully expect Donald Trump to be removed from this election, leaving her the only standing candidate, which would be catastrophe. I mean, literal catastrophe for all of us, but just political catastrophe because the Republican base will revolt. I don't know what they would do. They're going to have to remove Donald Trump just before the Republican National Convention. If they do, and Nikki Haley is the only one who shows up, sure, maybe she's the nominee, but I have to imagine it is going to be bedlam come Milwaukee. But let's talk about the big news today. And I want to do kind of a post-mortem here on the DeSantis campaign. I want to show you something that I find to be truly fascinating. The betting odds. Did you know that Ron DeSantis was over a 50% favorite beginning of January 2023? And he crashed, collapsing every single day. And part of what I want to express here is Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude at all of the whinging, ridiculous Trump campaign supporters. I'm sorry, DeSantis campaign supporters, not Trump. Although he has his, sure. DeSantis' whinging campaign supporters on social media. And no matter how hard you tried to help them understand, they would not accept it. Feels like it was on purpose. Ron, I don't know what you were thinking. You've destroyed your political career. It is laughably bad. Jeez. And you know, he should have fired Christina Pushaw a long time ago. Talk about the stupidest person in politics, Ron DeSantis. But I'll tell you why. My friends, if you're in politics and you're a leading governor and you've been endorsed by Trump and he boosts you up, and then you decide you're going to take a shot at the king to take that throne, you're a dumb guy, especially not realizing what's going on. But then you go and hire someone as stupid as Christina Pushaw. Okay, now, of course, you can say that she is the stupidest person in politics because of how horribly she ran things. But of course, the buck stops with Ron. He had an opportunity at any point to say, lady, you're not doing your job right. Instead, he decided, he's going to let her roll with it. And here you are. Look at this apocalyptic collapse of Ron DeSantis, and he is wiped off the map. The predicted betting odds have him equal to literally any other random person with 1 cent. Talk about failure. But to exemplify this, of course, we could talk about the fake quote. Now, within this story, there is more. A looming conspiracy. Not this story, but this segment that I'm producing. Laura Loomer has gone off on Twitter about Alexander Soros, the son of George Soros, posting some kind of veiled threat against Donald Trump. I got to be honest. I think she's reading a little bit too much here, and I mean like a lot of it too much. However, The conspiracy theorists who believe that Donald Trump is the Antichrist, yes, it's true, believe that there will be an attempt on Trump's life. If Nikki Haley is the only one left standing, and Vivek Ramaswamy has predicted that he thinks they will stop at nothing to remove Donald Trump, while I certainly don't think Alexander Soros was actually posting a veiled threat, he just posted an article from The Atlantic. We will break this down. I do think it's important to note that while there may be many overly excited Trump supporters, and I don't mean excited as a positive, I mean like agitated over the fears against Trump's life, they may be wrong about looking at what this, Alexander Soros posted, but I don't think the sentiment is wrong, and I understand why there's a fear there. As Vivek said, they will stop at nothing. Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, many prominent individuals have warned they will try to take Trump's life. It's a scary prospect. Let's get started here. Ron DeSantis posts fake Winston Churchill quote after suspending campaign. Now, what I'd like to point out first and foremost is as we were driving back home, we were hanging out in PA yesterday, over the weekend, when Ron DeSantis announced that he would be suspending his campaign. I played the audio in the car, and some people thought it was AI generated. I gotta be honest, it sounds AI generated. Ron DeSantis' speaking voice is so canned and generic. Yeah, it sounds like they typed it into a machine and pressed go. But that being said, let me play for you the final quote from Ron DeSantis as he ended his campaign.
To making their first snowman in New Hampshire. They are one of the reasons we fight so hard for what we believe in. Winston Churchill once remarked that success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue that counts. While this campaign has ended, the mission continues. Down here in Florida, we will continue to show the country how to lead. Thank you and God bless.
Well then, what an interesting assessment. He said it was Winston Churchill. You see, this is a perfect example of how poorly run his campaign is and how stupid this man is. Look, I'm sorry. I liked Ron DeSantis in the beginning. He has proven to be an abject failure and an accident of Donald Trump. I got to blame a little bit of Donald Trump here. Donald Trump, he propped this guy up. Why? Well, to be honest, he was the best that they had in Florida at the time. Who else was running? Who else could win? Donald Trump steps up and says, this is your guy right here. Thanks in part to the Florida legislature, as well as, I can agree, Ron did good things. They ended up with a remarkable track in Florida politically. This led to Ron DeSantis winning remarkably his reelection campaign. But it wasn't because he is a great leader. It is mostly because Donald Trump endorsed him, propped him up, and then, with the Florida legislature, they eventually pushed towards opening up the state before every other state. Now, they were locked down. They were in favor of mandates. That's a fact. But Ron did start to open up things early on, creating a haven. People then moved from California and New York into Florida, turning Miami Republican. Thanks in part to Ron DeSantis. I absolutely think he deserves some of the credit for this. Some. But Donald Trump created this man. And Donald Trump, listen, he did what he had to do. And then DeSantis went rogue. That's right. Instead of saying, thank you, Donald Trump, for the support and helping me get here, he decided he was going to break off onto his own. And it is so infuriating. All of the troubles of the Ron DeSantis campaign culminated by him quoting Budweiser. And I have fact-checked, and I believe I can say I have verified, oh yeah, baby, he quoted Budweiser, of all companies. So in the community notes, credit to other users for finding this. The quoted words in the tweet do not appear in this phrasing in any of Winston Churchill's books, articles, speeches, and papers, although they have been frequently misattributed to him. Someone responded, they do appear in a Budweiser print ad from 1938. Oh boy. Well, my friends, I give you Etsy. So first thing I did was I typed in, you can't tell them there's no fish, and I searched for the ad to make sure it was real. The person who said it was found in a Budweiser ad posted a digitized version, which could easily be made in Photoshop. So I found this on Etsy. You can't tell him there's no fishing. That's what the ad says. At the bottom, it says, men with spirit of youth pioneered our America. Men with vision and sturdy confidence. They found contentment in the thrill of action, knowing that success was never final and failure never fatal. It was courage that counted. Isn't opportunity to America today greater than it was? Okay. What did he say? It's the courage to continue that counts. Well, it's not verbatim. They say it was courage that counted. He is, in essence, quoting Budweiser. I also found this from eBay. In fact, I even ordered one of these, and I hope one day perhaps Ron DeSantis will autograph one of these things. A piece of history. Now, much like Dukakis, I don't think there will be great reference to Ron DeSantis in the future or in the history books. But to those who do look back at this time period, there is a story to be told about the Ron DeSantis campaign and its failures. We can see here an actual physical version of the ad. This was posted well before Ron DeSantis quoted it. So I think it says it was last updated December 25th, 2022. So this is over a year ago, over 1 year ago, this was posted. This is a real ad, and there's more than one available to be purchased. This one was last updated July 17th, 2023, well before Ron DeSantis used it in a almost quote, thinking that it was Winston Churchill. What a sad failure that is the Ron DeSantis campaign. With 50.8% in the betting odds, January 3rd, 2023. How did he fail so miserably? My friends, when you are starting so high and dropping so low, I have to say, this man is as dumb as a box of rocks. Running only ensured the end of his political career. He could have worked with Trump, likely would have been Trump's VP pick, and it would have been something. Although I'm glad we saw this because you do not want a man as stupid as Ron DeSantis running. All of these DeSantis supporters are on Twitter going, "Grr, I can't believe how stupid these people are." I'm sorry, I got no respect whatsoever. We are watching a man from the beginning trying to push a cube of stone uphill, and we're like, listen, my guy, I'd understand if that was a boulder you were trying to push uphill. We can understand an uphill battle, trying to roll a boulder uphill. But you're pushing a gigantic cube. It ain't rolling. You're just pushing straight against the ground. Hey, it's not impossible to push a cube, a gigantic pyramid block uphill. It's possible. But as we're pointing it out and trying to give advice saying, maybe you should try this, that, or otherwise, the Ron DeSantis supporters would just shriek like banshees, really stupid ones, on the internet. Good riddance. But my friends, we now have questions about what's going to happen as Nikki Haley remains in the race, and tomorrow we have the New Hampshire primary. I don't see a reality in which Nikki Haley actually wins, except in the instance Democrats flood the system to vote for her, which they may do. Then you've got to ask yourself something interesting. Even if they do, Nikki Haley can't win because not enough Democrats are going to do this. If Democrats are donating Nikki Haley, perhaps we are looking at a trap. Yeah, I think people should consider this. Democrats donate to Nikki Haley thinking they're sabotaging Trump. Nikki Haley knowing full well she's going to drop out of the race. She's not been bad-mouthing Trump. The media's pointed this out a little bit, but not as much as she should be. So she makes millions off Democrats, drops out, and then can use all of that funding for some other race. Now, I don't know for sure, but I wonder if her campaign would be allowed to use that for other Republicans or give it to the RNC. I know that they do something with the leftover campaign funds. It doesn't just go in the toilet. So could they be funneling Democrat donations away from Biden by doing this? Perhaps. Perhaps indeed. New Hampshire Democrats vow to vote for Nikki Haley in GOP primary. Well, I say good luck to them, but Donald Trump is going to win. It's a waste of time that Nikki Haley is running, but it you know what? Fine, whatever. There's no real primary, and now we have the issue of come March, we're going to be doing the Super Tuesday event. There's literally no reason to do a Super Tuesday event. I guess, we're preparing it. We're getting insurance. There's a lot of stuff you got to do for live events. And I'm just like, call it Super Tuesday, I guess, March 5th. But Nikki Haley won't be in the race by then. Who knows? Well, my friends, I have more for you. Alexander Soros tweeted this. He said, last year, the crime and inflation crisis largely evaporated. So did the leading theories about what had caused them. But did you notice the veiled threat in this post? Why, it would appear that Alex Soros has just put out a hit on the former president. No, I got to be honest, it actually doesn't look that way. But Laura Loomer thinks it does. I can respect that people are concerned there will be an attempt on Trump's life. And perhaps you can make the argument that Laura's pulling a big ask. A big ask is basically you push something to the extreme and that moves people towards it without actually getting to it. And what I mean by this is by saying that this is a veiled threat against Donald Trump, it sparks a conversation around whether or not someone will try to take Trump's life. People are going to mock Laura Loomer for having done it, but it will drive that conversation. I think Laura's looking too deeply into this, to be completely honest. But the big guess basically is, let's say you want to sell a car that's worth $1,000. You say, I want $2,000 for the car. Someone goes, what? That's double the price of what it's actually worth. I'll give you 12. And you go, oh, okay, I'll take it. The big ask pulls them down. You still made $200 more than you actually thought you would. Now, what in this image could possibly be a veiled threat against Donald Trump? Well, Laura says it's even more well, let me start from the beginning, I suppose. I think it's, here we go. Soros assassination threat against Trump. Basically, what she's pointing out is that in this image, you have a bunch of statements made. I'll then jump down. She's saying he is offering $100 million net to anybody who does this. Again, I do not believe that this is real or correct. She points out there's a 4 and a 5. Let me give you the general idea that she is trying to convey, which again, I believe is not correct. In this image from The Atlantic, they show a bullet hole in glass, and they show a person holding money. Now, I got to be honest. These are interesting photos to choose. It does make you think. In the image, there is, I believe, $47 being held. 47. To which Laura says Trump would be the 47th president. You can see a 4 and a 5 on the bills. It says, will pay the bearer on demand, which was removed in 1963. The year that JFK lost his life. This is what Laura's saying. And you can see that, what else? Silver certificate, she says, means silver bullet. Okay, well, I got to be honest. This is an article from The Atlantic. This is not something that Alexander Soros wrote. It was written by Roj Karma, January 18th, so 4 days ago. And it's talking about last year, the crime and inflation crisis largely evaporated. So did the leading theories about what had caused them. It would appear that The Atlantic pulled stock images showing crime and money. There are interesting photos to choose from. I have to be completely honest. I don't quite understand why The Atlantic chose these photos. I mean, seriously. If you were to talk about crime and inflation, wouldn't you just use like an image of New York City and the crime that's been going on, a modern reference to what's happening? I certainly don't believe that this is, from The Atlantic, some kind of threat at Donald Trump or whatever. But I can understand a lot of people are responding to this tweet saying that there's something serious. Donnie Darkened, who believes that Donald Trump may be the Antichrist, says, possible foreshadowing of the deep state's attempt on Trump's life, as also inferred by numerous examples of predictive programming. Quote, and I saw one of his heads, as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Well, what he's basically saying, these videos are wild, dude. So, charismatic leader, there's a card game. What is it called? The Illuminati or something. And it's from the 90s. And one of the guy, like the Antichrist or something, like, or I think it's Assassination. I don't know. A card, it looks like Donald Trump and charismatic leaders, got blonde hair. Like, doesn't mean a man with blonde hair doesn't mean Donald Trump. But the idea here is the Antichrist will be wounded upon his face and arm. And what's interesting is that people have made up a bunch of reasons as to why this may refer to Donald Trump. Donald Trump does that thing with his arm where he goes, and he like mocks somebody. And maybe that's just it. Others are saying that someone will make an attempt on Trump's life, scarring his face and his arm, damaging his arm, and then he will win re-election and he will be the Antichrist. Donnie Darkin points out, we had him on the Culture War podcast, that the Antichrist is not some evil figure who destroys the world. In fact, he's a great uniter, but he pulls people away from the true mission of Christ and God. Something to that effect. that the Antichrist essentially elevates himself to this position and everyone is focused solely on him. But he does unify, and he does fix things. It's a particularly interesting idea, but not for me. I think it's all just a bit too silly as far as I'm concerned. And look, man, I do think that there's a real risk to Trump, that they may try to take his life. Who knows? I certainly think there are many people who are, they live in a different world than I do. And they're allowed to. But I think Trump does have risk. I think we should be paying attention to it. I think we should be vigilant, and Trump should up his security. Because Nikki Haley is still in the race when she shouldn't be, and we have to wonder why that is. Perhaps she is just tricking Democrats, whatever. Either way, I don't want her to win. Now, as to who Donald Trump could choose as his VP, I honestly don't know. We thought for a long time that it would be Ron DeSantis. Not so much anymore. I don't know that it could be Vivek Ramaswamy. Some people are saying Tim Scott, perhaps Ben Carson. Maybe. But for now, the race is down to Donald Trump and no one really else, and there's no real race, and it was a waste of everyone's time. But the New Hampshire primary is tomorrow. I don't know that I even care to cover it. I got to be honest. You know, for the Iowa caucus, we went down and we did a big show. We had Vivek Ramaswamy, and there was a lot of interest around Vivek, Ron, Nikki. Not so much Nikki, but I mean like the interest in the story. Now it's just Nikki, and she's just, there's no point even bothering talking about her. So I don't know that we're going to do a New Hampshire primary show. I think we'll probably just do the show as normal and then passively, oh, look, Nikki lost again. Sure, whatever. We'll see, though. Tonight should be interesting. We got a lot to talk about. Sean Strickland, UFC. I think it's funny because people are saying Sean Strickland wasn't robbed. And he was, because that's quite literally what it means. It was a split decision. He was robbed in that many thought he should have won. Dana White said he should have won. It is what it is. It is what it is. But we'll talk about. I'll talk about that in a moment because we do have some political UFC news coming up later. They're trying to get Dana White to call out Sean Strickland. I thought it was a good fight, but we'll get into that later. I'll leave that there for now. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.